I am so excited to welcome you not only to Jacksonville, but to the launching of the podcast called The Covenant, more specifically, the Sistah Covenant. And yes, I did say sister. What is the covenant, the Sistah Covenant? It is a circle of friends, my friends for 20, 30, 40 plus years, your friends, all of our friends, coming together in a safe space at a time such as this. We as women of color, we are counted on to nurture our families, our children, our significant others, our spouses, our community, our corporate boardrooms, and everything in between. But who fills our cup? I think about flying, and when we get ready to take off, what is said to us first? Put your oxygen mask on first before you can assist others. And that exactly is what the Sistah Covenant is all about. A safe space to encourage, to listen, to cry a little, laugh a lot, but most important, to empower and to fill our cup. Good morning. Great Sunday morning, and welcome to the 24th, y'all, episode of the Sistah Covenant. Wow, I am just incredibly blessed. I feel just excited. We got some big things coming up. So stay tuned for the 25th, guys, just next Sunday. But before we get there, we just want to thank you. Thank you for being on this journey with us over the last 10 months that we have been in this space, on this platform, for a time such as this, with these amazing women. And today won't disappoint. I promise you, the youngins, wow, we are in for a treat. Thank you for supporting the Sistah Covenant with your purchase of merchandise, as well as your views and your shares. You see that beautiful Sistah Covenant apparel right there in front of you. And if you have not purchased yours yet, you still have time. Please go to our website and purchase your t-shirts, your caps, and you still need your mask, and buy an extra one for a friend. And as you know, any purchases over $100, $10 will go directly to UNCF, because a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And as I said, in the fall, Gwen Hewitt, my dear friend, will be coming back and telling us how the Sistah Covenant can actually help the UNCF fund in a bigger way to make sure students all around this country have the opportunities they need and the tools and resources they need to be successful. We also want to just share with you, recently had an opportunity to go and bless another partner organization, NAMI. You know, we've had those individuals on the podcast a couple of times. And so this past week, we went out and presented a check to the local Jacksonville chapter of National Alliance on Mental Illness. And that is an excellent organization, and it's countrywide. So if you need assistance or just to talk or resources for you or a family member, please remember NAMI is just a phone call away. Join us after this podcast. Join the Sistah Circle. As you know, we don't always complete all the rich conversation that we began in this hour. So join us on the other side. by opening Facebook on your phone or your computer. Search the Sistah Covenant, find the groups tab, and then you click on group titled Sistah Circle. Sistah Circle, click join the group. It is just that simple. So join us right after this podcast. Now, we just want to get started because, again, we have some powerful sisters coming to the Sistah Covenant this morning. And I want to start with the first one, this beautiful, beautiful and brainy and bold woman, Shanita Denson. Shanita Denson is a beautiful friend of mine who is a full-time PhD student studying language, literacy, and culture at the University of Maryland in Baltimore. Good morning, Shanita. How are you?
Good morning. I am doing good. So happy to be in this space with you, Pat.
Well, I am happy that on an early Sunday morning, after I'm sure studying all night or late into the evening, you were able to join me. Shanita, so a little different than a few of the other, or the panel we're going to talk to in a little bit. You've been out of undergraduate studies for a little time. You've had 13 years as a professional, and now you're back full time as a student. Tell us about that. Tell us about your journey, how you got to where you are right now, and why now? Why did you feel it important to go back to school?
Yeah. So a little about my journey. So I started out when I was an undergrad at University of North Carolina at Greensboro. I just wanted to dance. I was a dance major, and that's all I kind of knew. And then quickly, a little bit thereafter, I realized that I didn't want to dance, but I did have other passions. I was a huge fan of Oprah. And I was just always amazed by how this Black woman who looked like me was able to bring together people from all races and backgrounds just through her voice, just through the power of communication. And I've always been someone who has enjoyed talking to other people, love having conversations, love connecting. I'm definitely a people person, even though I am an introvert. And so I kind of started down this path of communication. And so, you know, when I was also a student in undergrad, I was very involved on campus. I was an orientation leader. I was a student manager in our student union. I did so much stuff. I was in a sorority. I had an amazing college experience. And so that kind of put me on this trajectory of going into higher education. So the past 13 years or so, I've been in higher education. I've worked at different institutions, predominantly white institutions, HBCUs, doing different things, community engagement, service learning, diversity and inclusion work. And one of the things that I realized in a lot of those spaces is that there was just an absence of Black women, especially in positions of, I don't want to say authority, but leadership positions. And that's something that stood out to me. What really started me on this PhD journey, however, is I was teaching. I was an adjunct teacher, at the time a professor down in Florida. And I realized, like, on the first day of school that, you know, and it was a predominantly white space, but I realized on my first day of school, I'm walking into this classroom, and I always show up as who I am in all spaces. So I walk into the room with a head wrap on, my big hoop earrings, still professional, but definitely always me. And I just realized, like, the reactions that my white students gave me, they were not expecting me to be in front of the classroom. They expected me to be a peer. It was very obvious that they probably never had a Black woman as their professor. And I thought that that was a little sad and discouraging. But I owned this space and I was proud to be in that space. And so one of the things that I realized that, especially as a Black woman, unfortunately, we have to have certain things behind our names. We have to have the credentials. We have to have, you know, the titles. Unfortunately, that's the world that we live in. And so I realized that, you know, I do want to be, I'm still deciding if I want to be a professor or not, but I realized that I want to put myself in a space where it's not where it's not so odd or where it's not so surprising to see a Black woman in front of the classroom. And I would also say on the flip side of that, the first time that I walked into an HBCU in the classroom as a professor, the accolades and the feedback and the response that I got from my students was so amazing. They were so excited, so proud that I was their professor. And so again, that kind of just confirmed, like, I do need to be in this space. I do need to be in this role in front of the classroom. And so, yeah, that kind of just started me on that particular path. And you said, why now? I think for me, I was never really sought out to get my PhD, or I never thought I was going to get my PhD. I always try to let myself be open to life. I always have a plan A through Z, but at the same time, I still try to just be open to wherever life kind of guides me and kind of takes me. And like I said, when I had that first teaching experience, I realized, like, I really need to do this. And I was really passionate about different research interests. And so I just decided to do it. And I always said that if I went back to school, I wanted to do it full time. So yeah, I have been doing it full time for the past 2.5 years. And that has definitely been a journey, going from working full time to now being a full-time student, but it has been absolutely worth it. And so here I am now, and God willing, I'll be graduating next year.
Shanita, you said something very interesting to me. I don't know if you want to elaborate. The two spaces, the space here in Florida, which happened to be a PWI, I think you said, and the HBCU space, received differently. How did you command those two spaces and hopefully walk away feeling as though you left an impact on those students, which is why you were there, but you felt empowered in those spaces?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I also should say the classes that I teach are usually public speaking or interpersonal communication, human communication. And it is interesting, just the contrast between the two spaces. So one of the things that I always do, one thing that I love about teaching communication is that's something that unites us all. That's something that it doesn't matter, your background. We all connect when it comes to conversations, when it comes to interpersonal relationships, when it comes to, just all of the nuances that come with communication. And so for me, and also this is going to sound a little unfortunate to say, but, I think for Black women, when we are in predominantly white spaces, we do feel a little forced to, like, oh, I really got to show up. I really got to be professional. I have to let these people who don't look like me know that I deserve to be here. And I think it's so unfortunate that we feel like we have to be so much more than we already are in these particular spaces. But I think a lot of it probably accounts to my personality, where I was able to, even in that predominantly white space, have them really connect to me. At the end of the day, we're all more alike than different. So it was interesting. I still love that experience. Absolutely love teaching down in Florida, but it is just completely different being in an HBCU. It was kind of heartbreaking because on the first day of that particular semester, and I was teaching at Coppin State here in Baltimore, one of my students, she was just like, why would someone like you come teach us kids in the hood? Like, you are, you're a doctor. You just seem like you have all this going for you. Why would you want to teach us? And so, you can have more real conversations when you're in a classroom and everyone looks like you. And so I had to tell her, why wouldn't I be here? Like, never, ever question, why someone would want to teach someone like you. Like, when you look at me, I am you, and I want you to be better than me. And so it was just really interesting, like the complete difference between being in a predominantly white space, being in a predominantly Black space, and being confirmed every day that this is why we need to do podcasts like these. We need to, be exposing the things that we're doing and just sharing what we're doing, because there's so many people who think that they cannot be in these positions. And I always tell people, never envy me, never think that you can't do what I'm doing. Like, be better than me, and you can be better than me. So yeah, completely different experiences, but it's just something special when you are in a space where people look like you.
And modeling the fact that you are enough.
There you go.
You are enough.
Yeah.
That was my takeaway from that. So tell us about your dissertation. That is what I'm excited about, and why. I never thought about storytelling as the bridge for so much in our society. And we sit at the feet of our elders, right? And we hear all the stories. In my generation, it was like children are to be seen and not heard. So don't talk, just listen. Tell us your thoughts around intergenerational conversations and storytelling.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm very passionate about storytelling. That's one of the things that I've always brought, to any space that I'm in. Even when I started out as a dance major, I wanted to use art to tell a story. I think we all do have stories to share. And sometimes it's not verbally, it can be through art. It can be, so many different avenues. So always been passionate about storytelling. My dissertation is focusing on Black millennials and Black baby boomers, and asking what stories did they hear growing up about love? What stories did they hear, or what stories did they tell about love growing up? The way that I'm using love is not necessarily romantic love. It can be self-love, community love, however, my participants want to define love. But the reason why I'm using utilizing Black millennials and Black baby boomers, one, because I'm a millennial and my parents are baby boomers. And so we have a really, special connection to where I really see the benefits of really using that particular generation. And then there's also been like a lot of negative stereotypes between millennials and baby boomers and just stereotypes and assumptions. And so trying to kind of address that from a positive light. But the reason why I am focusing on love is because, unfortunately, when we think about Black people, when we think about the statistics, you always want to talk about numbers don't lie. The statistics show that as Black, people, we have the largest amount of single parent households. Black single women make up the largest demographic of single women. Most of our, Black men, as statistics say anyways, are, unavailable due to, being incarcerated or not having a job, like all of these negative stereotypes. And maybe even if the statistics are true, we don't ever create the space to figure out, why are those statistics true? Why do we have, the single parent households? Why do we have so many single Black women? And so really trying to connect it back to, well, what are the stories that we hear about love growing up? Did anyone ever sit you down and say, hey, this is how I want you to exhibit, loving yourself. This is what it means to have positive self-esteem, especially for Black women. Whenever we do try to show love to ourselves publicly, it's usually, we're criticized for showing our body or showing this or doing that or having curves. We're told to cover up. We're told to keep our head down. We're told to be silent. And so for me, I connect all of those things back to, well, what are the stories did we hear about what does it mean to love ourselves? And one of the things that I found in Black families, especially with Black millennials, is a lot of us haven't been told stories about what it means to love. Something else to keep in mind is that love is a cultural thing. So how a Black person may define love may be different from a white person defining love. With Black people, we look at love a lot of times as survival. Well, my mom may not have told me, the story about, the first time she realized she had positive self-esteem, but I know she loved me because she made, sure that there was food on the table every day. So also just trying to examine, like, how do we define love? And how is it different from other people? And I guess to take it another step further, it's not what are just the stories that we hear growing up about love, but how did those stories then affect our identity? How did it affect our relationships, our health, our well-being, and how is it still impacting those things? And I think a lot of times we just don't really think about how, these things that we grew up hearing or telling, and most importantly, what are the stories that we didn't hear that we wish we would have heard? And maybe if we would have heard it, would we be different now? And just also recognizing too that it's never too late to hear those stories or to tell those stories or to create those stories. And so I'm really excited about it, really, really passionate about it. I've been fortunate to have a lot of friends from different generations. Pat, you know this very well. I'm part of a sisterhood that is just so amazing, that has really started me on this journey of, using different intergenerations. I'm the only millennial. No, there's one other millennial in the group, but most of them are also Gen Xers and baby boomers. And it's such an amazing, empowering space being with these women, having the conversations, having the dialogue. And it's not necessarily like just a mentoring relationship. They're exchanging wisdom with me. I'm exchanging wisdom with them. And it's just a beautiful experience. And so just trying to promote and encourage people to, seek out friendships and relationships of people of other generations, especially with millennials. Again, we have the highest, we are the highest demographic who came from single parent households. And I believe just because you may have been raised without a mother or father, there's so many other people out here in your parents or, your mothers or fathers age range who just have all of this wisdom, who want that experience, who wants that relationship. So don't let that gap, prevent you from hearing those stories that you wish you would have heard or told. There are other people out here who, like I said, they're willing, they're ready, and they want to have those type of relationships. But there's not a lot of conversation. There's not a lot of research about why intergenerational relationships and friendships are so important.
Shanita, thank you so much for that. I am so honored to be a part of that tribe with you. We are living in some real interesting times, and that's really why the Sistah Covenant came to be, what you just said. This space, a safe space for women, specifically women of color, at a time like this, where there's social unrest. We're living in a global pandemic. The country is very divided. How do you feel your work will help the greater good, but us specifically? Because what I heard you say, going back from your very first comment, we are enough, but we give ourselves away to everyone, and we have to morph and fit ourselves in boxes and pretzels. And you indicated you come always as your authentic self. Storytelling, how do you feel this can help us heal hundreds of years of hurt, even within our own communities?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, sometimes, like, as Black people, we hate to always talk about like racism and slavery. But when you think about the things that are going on today, you really have to understand how like the times of slavery are still impacting us today. Especially like the Black family and Black people. I mean, you think about, in slavery, the Black man was torn from families, sold into slavery, weren't even included on birth records because they, created this idea that the Black man wasn't worthy. And so Black women were forced to step up to be, the leaders, the breadwinners, the people who are holding families together. They didn't have time to have conversations with their kids about what it means to love themselves or what does it mean to love someone else. It was like survival mode. And then when you look at how we are today, we are still in survival mode. We are still in this hustle mentality. Like, I got to get this, I got to get the house, I got to get, all of these material things, but we're not having conversations. And we're definitely not having conversations about love. And I don't want to sound cliche, like, talking about love is going to be the solution to everything. But I think that we do kind of underestimate the value of talking about, purpose, love, all of that is the same to me. Why am I here? Why am I, showing up as a parent, or how am I showing up as a parent, or how am I showing up as a friend, as a partner, as a, employee? All of these conversations that I feel that we're not having. And so when I think about the social unrest, when I think about how we're still trying to unpack things from 100 years ago, unfortunately, and I'm hoping that my research will add to this, there's so many Black families that still aren't having conversations about what does it mean to, did your parents ever sit you down and say, hey, this is what it means to be a good wife? Or were just saying, hey, just model what I'm doing. And then if the statistics are that most of us came from single parent households, then where are we learning all of this stuff from? And all of those things, those stories that we didn't hear, the conversations that we didn't have, when you think about some of the things that are happening with the social unrest and some of those deep rooted issues, when you kind of look beyond what just the media is showing us, I just think if more conversations were had as we're growing up with our, with our children, with our parents, like, not saying that these things still wouldn't happen. I'm sure they would be. But I think a lot of this stuff is happening too because people aren't feeling loved. People aren't feeling appreciated. People aren't feeling like they have a purpose, a passion, a plan. And a lot of times they're just not having what I call heart to hearts. We're not having those heart to hearts with people to let them know, kind of like what you were saying, Pat, that we are enough, that we don't have to be in this, hustle culture, that the Black woman doesn't have to always be resilient or strong, or the strong, independent Black woman. We can be all of these other things too, and that we don't have to try so hard. But apparently, unfortunately, like I said, we're still navigating and we're still, dealing with things that started as far back as slavery, but a lot of people don't want to talk about it because as soon as the Black person mentions slavery in non-Black spaces, then we're, trying to repeat the past, or we're trying not to move forward. But it's just unrealistic to think about how things that happened back then, they are still impacting us today. And one thing that I love about millennials and our culture, we're so committed to, breaking generational cycles. We're doing the work, we're going to therapy, we're asking the hard questions, we're having those conversations, how we're parenting our own kids. It's not that we're trying to be better than our parents, but I think in a lot of ways we are trying to be different. We're trying to just make sure that those stories that we didn't hear tell growing up, that we are having those conversations and we are having those stories with our children, and hoping that the next generation is even better than the one that we're in now.
Shanita, you're so wise. You're still yet so young. What would you tell your 20-year-old self if you could talk to her?
Honestly, I think I would tell my 20-year-old self to ask questions, like unapologetically ask questions. And I'm someone who's pretty, I'm already inquisitive, but to ask questions like the hard questions in the workplaces, in relationships with your parents, just ask questions. I think about, I'm so fortunate that I have the relationship that I do with my parents. I interviewed my mom last year about this topic of love, and I was just asking her, conversations that she had, with her parents about love. And unfortunately, she didn't have a lot of, conversations, or any really. She knew that her parents loved her, but she couldn't name conversations or stories that she heard about, what does it mean to love, or what does love look like? And so even when I was having that conversation with her, and we are very, very close, we never had those conversations about love before. And I realized, wow, how different could some of my experiences could have been growing up, or even in different places that I showed up, or relationships that I was in, if I just asked, hey, mom and dad, you all got a divorce after 20 something years. Can you, not trying to kind of pry your business, Pat, it's funny when you said that, in your generation, you were kind of told not to ask questions. And in my generation, I feel like it's a little different. Parents are quick to put you in your place, but just how maybe it would have been helpful to kind of say, hey, mom and dad, I know that your marriage didn't work. Anything that you can, tell me, and not from a negative standpoint, but just kind of those lessons learned. And so I think for me, even on the workplace, asking for a raise and not feeling, down about it, or in relationships, just asking what is it? What is it not? Just asking questions. I think that's what I would tell myself, because a lot of times I think I missed out on opportunities, or I assumed, or just so many different things because I just didn't ask because I was scared, or, I'm in a society that says, don't ask questions, just, get what you can get. And, like I said earlier, keep your head down, be silent. And I think a lot of us would be in different places if we just ask the hard questions.
So our time is up, but you must promise to come back to the Sistah Covenant real soon. I'm going to invite some of my baby boomer friends. I'm just on the cusp. I'm a little older than you. And we're going to kind of dig deep into this storytelling. And to your point, how it can heal, how it can unite, and maybe build some bridges around generations, but kind of move our country and our communities forward. Is that a promise?
Absolutely. I would look forward to that.
Thank you so much.
Thank
God's
you.
blessings to you, Shanita.
Same to you, Pat. Thank you so much for having me in this space.
She is a phenomenal young woman, a young woman that is blazing a trail unapologetically. Now, I have the pleasure, the sure joy of introducing another young woman to you, Dr. Courtney Owens. I have known this young lady all of her life, and I am incredibly proud of her. We had the opportunity to sit down a little earlier this week, and I want to share our pre-recorded conversation with you.
I am super excited to introduce my next guest, someone I have known all of her life since before she was born, Dr. Courtney Owens. Dr. Owens is an emergency medicine resident, first year doc at the Carolinas Medical Center. Welcome, Courtney.
It's so nice to be here and finally be able to join your amazing broadcast.
Thank you so much for joining. So check out my digs in this special. I am in Seattle, as you know, visiting with Miles, and this is the Amazon Spheres, which is actually an employee lounge / conservatory, and it has beautiful flowers and plants and wildlife. It is amazing. They opened this back in 2018 just for employees that have an alternate work environment. So this is pretty cool. I could get used to this.
Beautiful. I love the natural light.
It is beautiful. Well, thank you for coming to join me. I am just so impressed with you, young lady. So tell my audience, Courtney, you are a resident, first year doctor, ER doctor, I must say, in the middle of a pandemic. Tell us about your journey. How did you get where you are right now?
Well, the journey of medicine can be a long and somewhat arduous one, but it is very gratifying to finally be in a position to be able to introduce myself as doctor, physician to patients, and definitely be a lot more of the leader in terms of helping in the team and helping take care of them. In order to become a resident, I first had to complete my undergraduate studies, and I did so at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee. I finished there in 2013 and took somewhat of a non-traditional route in medicine. I didn't go straight into medical school. Right after graduating undergrad, I actually spent time serving through Teach for America, which is a 2-year program in which I was a 7th grade math and science teacher in an area in Oakland, California, which did not have as readily access to teachers and educators that were willing to go to those under-resourced communities to teach. And so that's how I spent my first 2 years out of undergraduate. And then I spent an additional year serving as a medical scribe in an emergency department, which is where I first got my interest in emergency medicine back home in Georgia. And then I went to medical school at the Medical College of Georgia in Augusta, Georgia. And after 4 years there completing medical studies, then I went through a process in which I applied to be an emergency medicine resident and was matched to Carolinas Medical Center here in Charlotte, which has been such an amazing experience so far. And I'm really happy to be here.
So tell us, why did you feel it important to take that junket sideways, I'll say, to Teach for America for 2 years? Why was that important for you on your journey to becoming a doctor?
So that was important to me because I really wanted to experience life outside of medical training, and I'm so glad that I did. I think that when you are taking so much time to be almost a lifelong student in medicine, which is what you are in medicine, even after you become a physician, you are still a student. I still study every single day and go to work. So I think that you can, in a way, become narrow-minded, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way, but really you're so focused on your studies and what you have to do for the next exam or the next test or the next paper. And I think that you can just sort of become laser focused in your sort of area and focus. And I really wanted to take that time to explore more of the world and to be more of a servant, really understand what are the problems that everyday people who are not within the ivory towers of medical undergraduate education and then medical education, what they experience, because I see medicine as first being rooted in service to other people. And so I really wanted to know and experience that aspect of service through teaching, which has been really important in my family. My grandmother was a principal. My mother was a undergraduate and graduate level teacher and professor. And so that's always been really heavily rooted in my family as well. And I always enjoyed teaching, and actually the Latin word root meaning of doctor is teacher. And so knowing that I would always be not only a learner, but also a teacher, not only to patients, but other medical students and residents who would come after me, I thought that that was a great way to not only experience the world, but also hone in more on my teaching skills as well.
So Courtney, in your practice, you are an ER doc in a major hospital. During a pandemic, you see old, young, all types of patients. Tell us what this experience has been like for you.
This experience has really shown me, especially during a pandemic, that it doesn't matter race, nor class, nor religion. I think that medicine and health affects every single person equally. You're not able to buy yourself better health. Well, you are in certain ways, but that's sort of a different conversation. But I think basically overall, I think that this has really shown me in this pandemic environment that it is so important to protect yourselves by getting vaccinated, to protect your loved ones by wearing masks and social distancing, because I've seen this pandemic affect the young, the old, the Black, the white, the rich, the poor in almost equal ways. And that is pretty astounding.
So if you could have anyone's ear that you've been trying to convince to become vaccinated, what would you say to them right now? And specifically targeting your age group, Courtney, because it seems like that's a large demographic that, for whatever their reasons, aren't tuning in. How would you convince them if you could?
I would say really think of your reasons about why you don't want to get vaccinated or why you don't believe in getting vaccinated, and try to have a really open and honest conversation with a healthcare provider that you trust. Because we have seen so much from this pandemic, so much preventable loss of life. And it's really coming from a lot of healthcare providers, people who are on the front lines, caring for individuals in their last moments when their family cannot be with them because of the visitation and social distancing rules that there are in the hospital. And they will urge you, please protect yourself. What has been proven to help prevent against this devastating disease, COVID-19, is vaccinations, is masking, and is social distancing, with vaccinations far and above being the most effective strategy for protecting yourself and protecting your community. And I would say, I think I've heard one of the biggest reasons I've heard is overall distrust of the medical community, which is really heartbreaking, but also understanding as a African-American, having studied a lot of the history of medicine, I can understand why someone might think and want to be distrusting of the medical system overall. But that's why I urge you to talk to someone in the medical field, whether it be a nurse, a healthcare technician, a physician, someone that you trust. Ask them what they've seen and know that they don't have any ulterior motives. Like you might think, okay, I saw actually a really great post the other day that said, politicians may want your vote and companies may want your money, but only healthcare providers, they want to see you live. We have no other motive other than to want to see you live and be healthy. And the way that has been proven to prevent COVID, to prevent the COVID and the devastating effects of COVID-19 is vaccinations.
That's excellent, Courtney. Thank you for that. I'm going to steal that from you, and I'm going to say, per Dr. Courtney Owens. So you've had a whirlwind year. You graduated, you got married to the wonderful man of your dreams, Dr. Virginal Owens. You got matched at the same hospital, moved to Charlotte, moved in a new beautiful home. How are you balancing all of that and filling your own cup?
That is an excellent question, Auntie, and something I ask myself every single day, how I manage that. You illustrated that beautifully. There were so many big life changes that we've had over the last year, so many amazing blessings that I'm so thankful for, so many dreams and prayers that have come to fruition. And I think really the best way when I get overwhelmed with all those different changes and all those different responsibilities, as you noted, is really just thinking of taking it one day at a time and really just trying to do my best on what I need to do that day. So whether that is I have a shift that day and I'm working in the pediatric ER and I have a mother who's very anxious about a problem that might not seem like as big an issue from a medical perspective. I need to just put in perspective, this is the biggest issue that mother may have right now as a first-time mom, and kind of walk her through that process and give her that comfort. Or whether that is trying to figure out when to spend quality time with my husband during our very busy schedules, with him also being a resident and myself, and figuring out how to spend time together. So it's really just taking everything one day at a time, trying to be very present in whatever moment that I'm in, and just being thankful for all the amazing blessings and all the transitions that have happened over the last year.
That's beautiful. So, Courtney, our time is ending, but how would you, or what advice, I guess I would ask, would you give another contemporary, a 20, 30-year-old something young woman around achieving goals, accomplishing goals, and achieving your dreams while pursuing happiness? Because sometimes we've seen where those haven't aligned. People may be successful, whatever success looks like, but not very happy. What advice would you give to another 20, 30-year-old around happiness and balance?
I would definitely say, really try to think and reflect about what you're passionate about and what you want to get out of life. And try not to put that in the context of what anybody else wants for your life, because it's so easy to think about your parents or your significant other or another loved one or what you have to do financially, which is all completely understandable. But you also are the one that's going to have to wake up every day and live with the decisions that you make. And so I would say, first, think about what is going to really make you happy and what is really going to make you fulfilled. And once you figure that out, sort of what I always call, and what I've used as a teacher, is called backwards plan. So think about, okay, what are your end goals? What's going to make you happy? What are your passions? Where do you see yourself in several years? And then try to figure out, what do I need to do to get to that point? And so that really comes from reaching out to others who are there. There are so many people, myself included, who want to help others and support them in their journeys. I did not get here on my own. I used so many people before me, and we know that we stand on the shoulders of giants, and we've used so many of the people who came before us as support and as a wealth of information. So I say, think about where you want to be, reach out and ask others for support, and then do something to reach that goal every single day, even if it's something small. So yeah.
Well, you are a beautiful, brilliant, and bold young lady, and I am incredibly, incredibly proud of you. Thank you, my dear, for coming to talk with us, and we look forward to visiting again with you on the Sistah Covenant. You promise to come back?
I promise. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
She is amazing. She is simply amazing, and only in her 20s. So she is the epitome of professional yet grounded, beautiful inside and out. Now, I have the pleasure of introducing to you 3 additional young women, all living their best lives in different cities. Been friends since before elementary school. First, Joy Willis. Joy is the director of investor relations at Trip Therapeutics, Inc. Next, we have Rachel. Rachel Applewhite, a senior consultant with Deloitte. Lastly, but not least, Sydney Clark. Sydney is a business analyst at McKinsey and Company. Welcome, 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 ladies. Welcome to the studio. Hello there.
Hello. Thank you so much for having us.
Well, I know it's early, y'all. So get your coffee cups. Get your coffee cups, because we're going to talk. We are going to talk. It is so good to see you all. You all are beautiful. So, as I said in your intros, you guys have been girls, a part of a tribe for years. Joy and Rachel, I think probably all your lives, and certainly Sydney, I know since elementary school. And now you're all living, you're all adults. You're adulting. That's what your moms and I call it. You're adulting, and you're living in Joy, you're in New York. Rachel, you're in Boston. Sydney, you're in DC. Mm-hmm. So tell us about your journeys individually. We'll start with you, Joy, and go around. Sure. Tell us about your journeys. How did you get where you are, successful in these major cities, but navigating life in this time and space?
Yeah, sure. I'll go ahead and start. Well, most of you may know I was born and raised in Jacksonville, and I think that community is always a big part of who I am. And my parents were very intentional, kind of creating this environment for me that they thought was conducive for me to be successful, of course, as all parents do. And I think Jacksonville and Florida always became a bit of a comfort zone. But, you know, I've always been the kind of person to thrive outside of my comfort zone. And I'm not sure if that stems from, you know, who my mom is or just, you know, me as a person. But I think what I've always valued is human connection. And I think that when you can be intentional and push human connection from people outside of your walks of life, that really just broadens your perspective on life. And that's always how I've tried to look at life. So I think that I always saw myself moving to a city like New York, where I was completely out of my comfort zone. And I think it was a good match for me to kind of just grow as a person and keep broadening my perspective and connecting with people on a genuine level. And I think those are the values I hold closest as I move through life.
That's good. We're going to come back and we're going to unpack some of that, Joy. Rachel, tell us about your journey. Your journey a little different, though. You've done a few other turns and twists. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was raised in Jacksonville, born right outside of Chicago. I knew I wanted to move outside of Jacksonville and Florida for undergrad, and the Northeast was calling my name. I ended up at Temple University. a lot of things I've done have been grounded in kind of community service and public health. I decided to do the Peace Corps post-undergrad, so I ended up living in Peru for 2 years. Got a lot of field experience working as a community health educator. And I felt like I wanted to further develop kind of my understanding of public health and the framework, which brought me to Boston. I came up here 3 years ago to attend the Harvard School of Public Health to do my Master of Public Health. Thought I was just going to be here for a year and a half, but God had other plans for me. I stayed up here, worked in state government for a while, and I recently switched into consulting at Deloitte, but still focused in public health. I'm in the government public service sector, supporting federal health clients. So still working on things I'm passionate about, which I really appreciate.
That's amazing. We're going to come back. Got a couple questions for you on that. Sydney, you are the baby of this bunch, but tell us about your journey.
Good morning. So I was also born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida, and my parents went to FAMU and my grandparents went to FAMU. So I was kind of pushed in that direction. I've known since I was in high school that eventually I wanted to be a corporate executive. So the last couple of years of my life have definitely kind of been tailored to help me develop into a business leader. So I went to FAMU School of Business and did various internships on Wall Street there, then ended up in consulting postgraduate. So now I am at McKinsey in Washington, D.C., and I'm preparing to go to business school next fall.
So you all three embody beauty and brains. So that's a given. We see that on display. But how are you navigating at this time? As I mentioned earlier, we're in some unprecedented, unparalleled times. You've all heard it, a divisive country. We're living in a pandemic. You're living in major cities where you are having to navigate the external noise, as I call it, but you're in these high powered positions. How are you balancing all of that? And what have you found to make it work for you? And you can start, anybody who wants to take that. You're on mute, Joy.
Sorry. Yeah, I can start. Having been in the epicenter of the pandemic, New York, when everything was going on, and also I was working for Solbury Trout, which is a biotech consulting firm at the time. So I think it was maybe on my radar a little earlier than the general public. So being in New York, it was kind of eerie. You know, you're used to New York being a very lively, happening city, and then all of a sudden things are kind of changing. And growing up, my dad was a primary care physician at the Mayo Clinic, so I was kind of always had an affinity for healthcare and innovation in that space. And so, I get a call from my dad saying like, maybe you should come home for a couple of weeks. And I was like, okay, great. So came home, and it ended up being 4 months, and it wasn't ideal. But I think that time of my life, it was a difficult time. My family was dealing with a family member that was sick and a family member that was passing. So me and my brother, who I'm very close with, we spent a lot of time, at home. We called it holding down the fort, so to speak. And I think that was just an important time for me. We were able to just connect on a really foundational level. How often can you say, me and my adult sibling are living back in our childhood home for 4 months and really just getting that bond. And then I think that was really helpful for me when I went back to New York. And I think I just always am grateful for my brother in that way, because I think he was a really big support system for me through that. And then I think now it was really important for me to, kind of find my tribe. Like you said, Rachel, Sydney, I like to call it the home team. It doesn't matter where we are in the world, but that's family. And so I think it's important to kind of build that tribe, so you have, a group of people that you can lean on, because it gets tough. And my job at the time, I was the only minority at my firm. And, sometimes I would be on a Zoom call with an investor and it would be on mute, and I'm listening to Yolanda King give a speech on the Washington Monument, and there's emotions there. And then I have to kind of shut those off when I'm in that other lane. And so I think it's just important to find outlets that are constructive to your mental health, and that helps you kind of push through areas that maybe don't.
Awesome. Awesome. Rachel.
Yeah, so the pandemic hit right after I graduated with my public health degree, so very well timed. And I had just started a job, and I remember I had a month in the office, and we were literally refreshing the Hopkins COVID tracker of how the cases were rising. We were sent home for 2 weeks thinking we would be coming back from the office. Never set foot back into that office. Ended up, taking a new job. But like navigating virtual space is really hard sometimes. Sometimes there's not even a camera on, so you don't even really know the colleague you're speaking to. It's really just the voice you hear. And I think balancing the pandemic, the racial divide in America, it was all a lot to take in. And so Joy's comment about having that like foundation and community that can really be an outlet for you is so important. We took times to do like work from home weeks with friends. So like getting that circle together in a safe way, to have those conversations, but also have kind of just like that social aspect that was missing because of the pandemic. In my old job, I really appreciated that I was not the only minority on my team. I had 3 other Black women on my team. And, we had a small chat, group chat. And so when things were going crazy, we were able to like communicate via that channel. And that was so great to have in a space, in the space of public health, racial inequity in public health. The pandemic is public health. So it was just so important to have that. And it's definitely a transition. We think some people have been saying post-pandemic, we're not quite there yet. But things have started to change, like in the city I'm in, and, going out more and meeting up with folks, but also like, making sure vaccinated, safe, social distancing, all those things. But having that community and that outlet, it's so important this time for, both physical and mental health.
And Rachel, if I can just butt in right here before I get to you, Sydney, you've seen that behavior modeled, right? You and Joy and Sydney, the tribe of women. And that's who we are in this space, but your mothers.
Yeah.
We are girls, and it is so important to have that opportunity to connect. We talked, Shanita and I, just a moment ago about how important it is to have that tribe. So I'm so glad you guys keep that going. Sydney, talk to us about how you're navigating in this space in the capital city where all the decisions are made. And how's that going?
Yeah, so I recently started my professional career. I'm only 24. So I think for a lot of people, this has been the new normal, kind of transitioning from in office to now Zoom. But this is kind of all I know, since I think maybe 80% of my career now has been virtual. So I think just as a young professional of color, I think it's been really important to kind of learn how to navigate and meet new people and kind of become close with my team, become close with my manager in kind of creative and unique ways. I think living in DC, I've been trying to, I guess, be kind of aggressive with that. Like, for example, my manager lives like 10 minutes away from me. My sponsor lives very close to me too. So I think I've just been trying to find unique ways to kind of get in front of people, just so I'm not just a face on a Zoom.
So you guys all took different paths. I'll start with you, Sydney. You selected different educational institutions, and you kind of spoke a little bit to this, Sydney. You have a lineage to FAMU, Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. Why an HBCU? Joy, why a PWI, my alma mater, FSU? You guys were in Tallahassee at the same time. So tell us about that and what nuggets you felt made you who you are today from the selections. And Rachel, you went, as you said, the Northwest. You totally went in a different direction, but being born in Chicago, it wasn't foreign, but then having the experience even after undergrad to go to an Ivy League. Tell the audience about all of those experiences. Sydney, I'll start with you.
So basically everyone in my family went to FAMU. So I knew I wanted to go to an HBCU. I think also the strong business program there kind of led me to choose FAMU over some other HBCUs. After attending there, I like jokingly always say, like, I just know I want my kids to go to an HBCU. I think the community and the friendship and the support that you get from your professors, from your administrators, from your friends is kind of unmatched. And I do have, like, one of my best friends from Jack and Jill from Jacksonville, actually Nicole Green, she went to a PWI, and she just kind of talks about how she's just jealous about how that community that is kind of developed at an HBCU that, I don't know, I just definitely feel like, I don't know if it can be replicated in any other kind of educational setting, to be able to like go to your professor and even talk about like personal problems or just anything. Like, you just know there's so many adults at your school who just really, really, really want to see you succeed, and they've been in your shoes. I think also one thing that's interesting about FAMU, especially, is because my parents went there, I feel like I have a lot of support from people who know them. So there would even be times where like people would tell my parents like they saw me somewhere, things like that.
I was probably one of those.
Yeah.
Ladies, Joy, Rachel,
Sure.
you want to take a stab?
Yeah, well, I'll just say, I think, Ms. Pat, maybe you could speak to this. I think every FSU student spends a good amount of time across the tracks. I think the whole divide is not really real. So definitely glad to have made that choice and go to Florida State. But, you know, HBCUs have always been extremely important in my family specifically. My brother went to Hampton. My dad went to Morehouse Medical School. My mom spent time working at Edward Waters College. So I think Cindy's absolutely right. You know, there's no comparison in terms of creating an environment that's built to uplift Black people. So absolutely. But, you know, my choice to go to Florida State was very personal. You know, there's 40,000 students, huge environment. And I think that also speaks to the first question. You know, it was a bit out of my comfort zone in that way. And I think I also had to be very intentional when I went there and kind of finding those safe spaces within the grander Tallahassee community. And of course, you know, joining my sorority and other organizations, you know, again, that helped me find my tribe. And I think even at Florida State, I was able to surround myself with, you know, like-minded, beautiful women that were on the same page as me. You know, shout out to the Zeta Omicron chapter. I think there's a few on the call. So that was a big part of my decision. And of course, you know, Tallahassee being in a city where there's a major PWI and then a major HBCU, and then there's a big Black community as well. So I was happy with that decision.
I like to say the best of both worlds, right? We did spend a little time across the tracks, for sure. So Rachel, you had the opportunity to go Northwest and then go and get your master's degree from an Ivy League. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, so I was at Temple in Philadelphia. I think similar to Joy, HBCUs are very important in my family. My mom went to Clark. My dad went to North Carolina A&T. My brother went to Hampton with Joy's brother. They were actually roommates freshman year, so very cute. You know, out of high school, I originally thought I was going to go to Howard, and like Howard was my number one choice. And I did like a college tour with my good friend. And we went to a bunch of schools kind of in the Northeast area. And I stepped on Temple's campus one spring day. It was nice weather. Everyone was outside on the walk. It was super diverse, people from all walks of life. And I was like, I want to be here. I want to be in a city. I want to be at a large school that has like, you know, a lot of school pride and sports and just organizations. And I remember after that one visit, I told my parents, I was like, I'm moving to Philadelphia. This is it. And so I got in, I went, and Temple was one of the best times of my life. I have a core group of girlfriends from Temple, some beautiful Black and bold women as well. They were just up here in Boston this past weekend. And so thinking about, we graduated 6 years ago, we met each other a decade ago, and that friendship is still going strong. And so, you know, being a part of various organizations, I was in the National Council of Negro Women. You know, I did a lot of volunteering in Philadelphia, and kind of really shaped my path to go to Peace Corps. Like my roommate freshman year also did the Peace Corps. So it was really just a great environment to be in. It offered a lot of opportunities. And then, transitioning to like Harvard, for my master's was a bit different. It was hard. I think at Temple, I really surrounded myself with the Black community. So stepping into a majority white space, I have to navigate that. Not dissimilar to my high school experience, but it is a switch and something you have to like get back into, which is kind of unfortunate to say, but how I navigate Black space is very different than how I navigate white space. Harvard was a great opportunity. I think just, the network that you can build there is amazing. And so I feel blessed to have gotten the opportunity to go there and further my education in public health. I don't know if I would, be in the position I am today without some of these things. So it's been great. I'm still in Boston, but, I think I might make some moves to DC soon, which would be awesome. But, yeah, it's been a journey, definitely.
So that may be a major announcement that is being made on the Sistah Covenant as we speak.
We'll see.
So I'm sorry, Northeast, not Northwest, but Rachel, tell us why the Peace Corps. Dr. Courtney talked about Teach for America and how she made that decision out of undergrad to do that for 2 years in Los Angeles in the urban core, and then went on to grad school. Why the Peace Corps? Was it the same kind of thought process that it would help you in your professional life, or what was that about?
Yeah, great question. I mean, in high school, I did a mission trip as like, a week-long summer thing. And I came back and talked to my high school advisor at the time, and I said, a week isn't really enough to do anything, I think, impactful. Not to say it's not, but like there's so much more that could be done. And from there, I was like, I want to do something that's longer and has greater impact and like very focused in something. It came to be public health. So I knew going to college, I was like, I'm going to do Peace Corps after college. Meeting my freshman roommate who also wanted to do Peace Corps was just kind of like, a great coincidence. And so through those 4 years, we really talked about like the process of what we're doing to, kind of build our resumes to be able to have that opportunity. And I just come from, I think, a family that's very service oriented. My brother did Teach for America. My mom is a teacher. She used to work for City Year. My dad works for Year Up. And so it's a lot of platforms and organizations that are truly about working at the grassroots level and working with individuals to just better their environments, their futures, and their communities. And so that's something my parents have always like kind of instilled in me, the importance of I think giving back and supporting others. And so I wanted that to be the focus of the start of my career. And so that's kind of the main reason I did Peace Corps. I chose South America and Peru because I'd had a minor in Spanish, and I used to volunteer at a Spanish-speaking school in Philadelphia. So I wanted to continue building that language, kind of that culture sharing opportunity, as well as the focus in, public health.
So our time has come and gone, but I have to ask, so you're still young, but are you getting pressure from the parents, from the extended families, the aunties like me, the M word, is that on the radar? Or is there a soulmate in the scene anywhere? Any announcements on the Sistah Covenant? I know Sydney's looking like, Anybody that wants to take, I won't make all y'all talk. Just tell our audience.
I'll kick it off. I mean, I think moving to New York was a cool experience because it was kind of my first time being in a major city. I have my own money, my own spot, and I can kind of date in an adult world, a little bit different from college and high school, of course. So, and I mean, I think as you get older, you just become more and more intentional. You know, you get to know yourself more. You figure out what you need and what your non-negotiables are, and then of course, you know, growing up and watching my parents love each other was the biggest blessing in my life. So I think just having that, you know, of course you want a life partner, you want someone you can, you know, count on. And what is it? My mom says your emergency contact. So that's definitely in the plans. But I think right now it's a time where you just have to be content with yourself. And then that's what's going to draw in what your heart really needs. So that's how I feel.
That's good. Anybody else want to take that one?
I think now that I'm in my late 20s, the pressure is definitely there. Anytime I mention a name to my mother, she is like, "So, is this the one?" I was like, "Okay, I don't know yet." But you know, I think Joy made a lot of good points about, you know, kind of knowing your non-negotiables. I think at this point in my life and my career, of course, I want a life partner, but there's a lot of things that come with a partnership, and compromise is a huge thing. There's some things I'm not willing to compromise on right now, and you know, maybe in a few years it will look different. But you know, at this point, I'm really focused on, you know, myself and my well-being, and kind of this new path I'm on in consulting. So it's going well, and I think my mom will be patient and wait, and so I appreciate her for that.
We're getting old, guys. I'm just saying. It's about us. It's about us. You have anything you want to add to that, Sydney, or are you good?
I was going to say I'm really young. I'm only 24. So definitely no conversations or pressures from my parents. They actually want the opposite. They just want me to focus on myself. I would say, though, I feel like as a young Black person, I feel like it's important to kind of put yourself, or young Black woman, I think it's important to put yourself in spaces where it is possible to, I guess, find someone that's like kind of equally aligned with you. So I feel like Washington, D.C. has been like kind of a good place for that. And I have friends in New York and like Atlanta that kind of say the same thing.
So this question was probably more for me to get in the heads of my young guys, because Austin's in DC with you, Sydney, and Miles just was in Seattle for the summer. So as I start kind of cutting the apron strings and thinking, okay, what do I have to look forward to? I am just humbled if they follow in your footsteps. You guys are our village as well. So I thank you. I thank you. I thank all three of you. You all are all amazing. I know you have more goals to conquer for yourselves professionally and personally. And I want to invite you back anytime you want to come back and share all of what you're doing in your individual spaces, but collectively with young women who can definitely benefit and learn from your journeys. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye, bye, bye. Bye, bye, bye. They are simply amazing, beautiful, bright, and intelligent. And we didn't get to talk about vaccinations. We'll do that on the other side, and how they all have made the decision to get vaccinated so they can live their best life safely, along with masking and social distancing. So with that, we're over, but unapologetic for it. This was a rich and just blessed conversation. So do join us on the other side in the Sister Circle. And as always, my sisters, be bold, be brilliant, brave. You all are beautiful, and be blessed.